This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Mark Martin. As Tropical Isaias continues to barrel northward along the East Coast, forecasters are warning residents in New York and further north in New England to expect damaging winds, flooding, rainfall, and tornadoes throughout the evening. The storm made landfall in North Carolina as a Category 1 hurricane, causing flooding and spawning more than a dozen tornadoes. This was the scene in Windsor, North Carolina, where at least one person was killed, 3 still missing, and more than 20 people injured when a suspected tornado touched down at this mobile home park. Several other counties in the state also among the hardest hit by the storm so far, causing multiple house fires and destruction to numerous businesses.
I stepped out on the back porch and the sky was just completely red and it clearly smelled like smoke. And there were embers flying down the street.
Power companies from North Carolina to New Jersey deploying crews trying to restore electricity to some 760,000 people. With the storm system moving further north this evening, forecasters issuing tropical storm warnings from the mid-Atlantic to New England, where heavy downpours could come with wind gusts of up to 60 miles an hour in some parts as Isaias continues to make its way to Canada overnight. AccuWeather meteorologist Jeffrey Cornish has the latest forecast on what to expect next as the storm continues to move up the coast.
We have big problems across the Northeast as Isaias is racing northward. It made landfall as a Category 1 hurricane, 85-mile-per-hour max sustained winds at Ocean Isle Beach last night back at 11:10 p.m. Current status, it is racing northward. Most of the heavy rain is on the north side of the storm, and it is going to be rapidly exiting many areas. That's the perception in the Northeast as this thing, again, it brings tremendous rain, very strong wind, but it ends almost as quickly as it arrives, racing north-northeast at 35 miles per hour. Max sustained winds 70 miles per hour in some areas just on the east side of the storm. A lot of the true 70-mile-per-hour sustained winds are over the water at this point, but we're dealing with still strong gusty winds mixing down into the lower part of the atmosphere at times. So most of this southern watch has expired, although it does remain in effect until 4 p.m. for parts of the New York Metro and the tri-state area there. And then a newer tornado watch has been issued for southern New England, including Boston, Albany, and Manchester, New Hampshire until 9 p.m. As there have been numerous tornadoes. Here's a map showing the suspected tornado reports associated with this storm. And we often see this east of the track of the storm. There is an environment with extra wind shear. Tremendous rainfall. Some spots west of Philadelphia have sseen over 5 inches, 5.21 inches of rain reported in Richmond, Virginia. Incredible wind. Federal Point, North Carolina with a 99-mile-per-hour gust. We've had a gust of 87 miles per hour in Oak Island, where there was also sustained wind of 76 miles per hour, a true hurricane there in Oak Island. And the tropical storm warnings continue for many folks. Tropical storm watches into parts of Maine. Storm surge was 3 to 6 feet in parts of the Carolinas, 1 to 3 feet for the northeast coast. Still incredibly strong wind, 60 to 70 mile per hour gusts possible for parts of the Jersey Shore. Flash flood warnings continue. Flash flood watches continue up to the international border. And the heaviest rain has been 4 to 8 inches. D.C. up into places near Reading, Pennsylvania. Coastal flood advisories and warnings remain in effect as well. This storm has had an AccuWeather real impact scale rating of 1, and that's still the case even though it's a tropical storm now because of the wind and the tremendous rainfall. So this is going to race away to the north, but incredible rain for a brief time, 4 or 5 hours possible into places like Burlington, Vermont here this evening and into the early part of the night. Back to you.
Now turning to the latest on the coronavirus crisis. Nearly 8,000 Americans died from the disease last week. This as health experts continue to stress social distancing and mask wearing as the best ways to truly control the spread. 30 states across the country are seeing a rise in hospitalizations. President Trump is holding steady in his claims that the virus is under control. And as the next school year approaches, difficult decisions lie ahead. Mississippi is supposed to lay out a course of action for school reopening, but the state has the highest COVID-19 infection rate in the nation, and nearly all ICU beds are full.
It's impossible to imagine we're not going to pay the price for cramming kids into schools right now.
More than 4.7 million are now infected with COVID in the U.S., and at least 155,000 have died. Negotiations picked back up this afternoon on the latest round of coronavirus relief, but the White House says a deal is still a ways away. CBN's White House correspondent Ben Kennedy reports on the reason behind the holdup.
The holdup centers around unemployment benefits. The White House argues some people are making more money by staying home rather than working, but Democrats disagree.
We're having a very good discussion with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer.
President Trump sent his chief of staff and Treasury Secretary to Capitol Hill hoping to strike a deal with Democrats.
The problem is they want to do bailouts of their various Democrat-run states and cities. And they want a lot of money. They want $1 trillion for that.
We're not close yet, but it was a productive discussion.
Schumer says money for state and local needs, as well as paying for schools to open safely, is a must.
What started as probably the first day of a good foundation of productive discussions and building upon those and until we reach an agreement.
The agreement hinges on unemployment benefits. Democrats want the original $600 a week extended until 2021. Republicans want to cut that bonus to $200 a week. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi argues 30 million Americans count on that support for food, housing, and child care.
What we are doing is not only trying to arrest the virus, but to invest in the economy.
But the White House argues the higher the amount hurts the economy because some people make more money by remaining unemployed.
There's no question in certain cases where we're paying people more to work, stay home than to work, that's created issues in the entire economy.
Now Congress is getting ready for an August recess, which puts more pressure on lawmakers to hash out a deal. Ben Kennedy, CBN News.
And be sure to tune into Faith Nation this evening for the latest from our nation's capital. Turning overseas now, a massive explosion shook Lebanon's capital, Beirut, today, wounding a number of people and causing widespread damage. The afternoon blast shook several parts of the capital, and thick smoke was seen billowing from the city. Residents reported windows being blown out and ceilings dropping. Some local TV stations reported the blast was at Beirut's port inside an area where firecrackers were stored. That incident comes as tensions have been heating up between Israel and its surrounding countries. Earlier today, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned the Lebanese Hezbollah group and others after Israeli forces responded to an infiltration attempt from Syria by suspected militants. The Israeli military announced late Monday that it had struck targets in Syria after the militants tried to plant explosives in the Israeli-controlled Golan Heights. Netanyahu toured a military base today and said Israel would not hesitate to take further action. He said, quote, "We will do what is necessary in order to defend ourselves." Coming up, what one doctor has to say about sex reassignment surgery for transgenders and how he says it's not helping them in the long run. But before we go to break, here's a look at what's trending on CBNNews.com.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug of war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Welcome back to NewsWatch. The American Journal of Psychiatry says it got it wrong when it came to analyzing the numbers in a large study of transgender patients undergoing sex reassignment surgery. Last fall, the journal published the results of the study and found the surgeries improved patients' mental health, but this week it corrected itself, saying a second look found no improvement. Here now to explain the significance of this is Dr. Ryan Anderson, the William E. Simon Senior Research Fellow in American Principles and Public Policy at the Heritage Foundation, and he's also the author of When Harry Met Sally, Responding to the Transgender Movement. Dr. Anderson, we have here a prestigious journal admitting that they published a piece that incorrectly analyzed the data. How does this happen?
Well, we're all fallen and we're all fallible. So human error is a possibility here. But there's also the possibility that there was a preferred outcome to the study, and so that they wanted the study to say a certain thing. Obviously, we don't know in this particular instance whether this was just an honest mistake or if this was, motivated research, motivated reasoning to lead to a certain conclusion. But we can say that the media didn't report on one of the main findings of the original study, which was that hormonal transition showed no signs of improvement. They only reported on the original study where it said surgery transition showed signs of improvement, and now that claim has been retracted.
The topic is incredibly sensitive and controversial. You talked a little bit about this. Do you think some statisticians just did sloppy work, or was there an agenda at play among the researchers and journal editors? Elaborate a little bit more on that. What do you think, an agenda or just sloppy work? What's your gut telling you?
Well, I mean, it's hard to know. It's hard to tell in any particular instance. I don't know these two researchers. I don't know the editors of the journal personally. So, I can't speak to motive in this particular case. I can say, based upon the way that the media celebrated the study, the way that it was then used in social media, the way that it's been used to try to say that anyone with a dissenting viewpoint is against science, anti-science, wrong side of history, does show that the cultural moment in which we're living wants to suggest that there's only one allowed conclusion to this question. And the only allowed conclusion is that transition is the best solution. What the biggest data set now shows, and that's what this study uses, the biggest data set now shows that there's no benefits, psychological benefits to patients of hormonal and surgical transition.
What does what does this study mean for those struggling with gender dysphoria? Should they think twice about surgery?
Oh, of course. People who are struggling with their own gender identity deserve to know the truth. And what the truth is showing, what the science is showing, is that hormonal surgical transition doesn't provide the promised wholeness and happiness that patients are seeking. And so what we need to do is find ways to help patients feel comfortable in their own bodies. We need to be respectful. We need to be compassionate. We also need to be truthful. And so we need to be helping patients who feel uncomfortable in their bodies to once again feel comfortable in their bodies, but not to radically transform their bodies, because that doesn't bring the lasting wholeness and happiness that they seek.
You've noted the correction, but do you see it getting much attention elsewhere? I mean, you're bringing attention to it. Are others doing the same?
I have not seen media coverage of the correction in the way that we saw media coverage of the original study. And so that means if you're a parent of a child with gender dysphoria, if you're a patient with gender dysphoria, you remember the original headline that transition is good for you. You don't now know the corrected headline that it actually doesn't bring the promised benefits. That's why it's important what you're doing on CBN to shine the spotlight on the truth of the matter.
What other research would you like to see on the subject of gender reassignment surgeries, Dr. Anderson, and other medical treatments?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing right now is to focus on children. Right now, parents are being told that they need to prescribe puberty, that they need to put their children on the prescribed puberty-blocking drugs, cross-sex hormones, et cetera, et cetera. That is entirely an unstudied experimental treatment protocol. And so I think in particular, we need more research on what we can do for young people, for children who feel uncomfortable in their own bodies, and how we can help them feel comfortable once again. But we shouldn't be rushing to prescribe puberty-blocking drugs and cross-sex hormones. Parents need to know the facts about this as well.
All right, Dr. Ryan Anderson with the Heritage Foundation. Thanks for your time, sir.
Thank you.
And coming up, although the coronavirus dominates the headlines, another health issue is a top concern for many Americans as they grow older: Alzheimer's. We'll hear from a top expert about steps you can take to avoid getting this horrible disease right after this.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
And ministering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to CBNNewsChannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News. Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Thanks for staying with us. Research shows there's about 36 different causes of Alzheimer's. On this week's Healthy Living on the CBN News Channel, Dr. Dale Bredesen described his program to test for all 36 of these causes, and based on those results, customizes a lifestyle plan to prevent or even reverse the symptoms of Alzheimer's. Take a look.
How many people so far have gone on your program, and how advanced were they with Alzheimer's, and what were the results?
Yeah, so over 5,000 people have now used this program, and they are all different levels. So the best that you want to get on as early as possible, of course. The earlier, the better. We have people who are on specifically for prevention. And then, so in those people, we want to have a cognoscopy, specifically blood tests, evaluation of your cognitive status. And then if you have symptoms, an MRI with volumetrics. And if you don't have symptoms, you don't need to have that. And those 5,000 people, some of them all the way to MoCA scores of 0 in late stage. Now, no surprise, the earlier that you get started, the easier it is to get positive outcomes. However, we have seen some people, even in late stages, with improvement. In 2018, we published 100 documented cases with before and after studies of cognition, improvements in electrophysiology, improvements in volume areas in the brain. So we're continuing with those studies. We don't have follow-up on enough people yet, but we're continuing. We're also, I should say, in the midst of the first trial in history in which, instead of predetermining a treatment, saying, okay, we're going to treat with this drug or that drug, we're instead looking at all of the different contributors to the cognitive decline for each person and then addressing those. And this is the way of the future. This is the way that people will be treating cognitive decline for years to come, because it really makes no sense to predetermine a treatment and then treat everyone the same.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people would love to try the program. The first step is getting a cognoscopy. How does one do that? And why is it important to get one as early as possible before you even have symptoms?
Yeah, because prevention is the way to go. You really don't want, when someone develops Alzheimer's disease, that's been shown repeatedly, there are about 20 years preceding that in which the underlying pathophysiology is occurring. And, you know, people are noticing, oh, there might be a little senior moment here, or I might have forgotten this, but they kind of forget about it. And in fact, it's important to understand that. So you want to get in as early as possible. So we recommend that everyone who is 45 years of age or older consider getting a cognoscopy, and especially for anyone who has any Alzheimer's disease or dementia of any sort in their family, to get checked out early and get on prevention. That's going to be the best for you.
Why is insulin resistance such a problem when it comes to cognition? And can you describe why a daily fast is so important, including no food 3 hours before bedtime?
Yes, this is a great point, Lori. So there are about 80 million Americans who have insulin resistance, and most of us don't know it if we have it, unless we actually bother to check. So insulin turns out to be absolutely critical, and insulin resistance is associated with Alzheimer's risk going way up. The reason for that is because as we eat, we're eating diets that are often not the diets that we are designed to eat. In fact, our bodies don't do particularly well with some of the processed foods we eat and some of the high carbohydrate, especially high simple carbohydrate. Our bodies can handle about 15 grams or 20 grams of sugar per day. Many of us are eating 80 grams of sugar per day. So what happens with that is your sugar goes up. Sugar is actually relatively toxic to your body because the sugar molecules stick to many proteins, just like remoras on a shark. These things stick to these proteins, and what they do is they change the function of the protein, and they change the fact that the protein now becomes inflammatory. Your body recognizes this as a different protein. So you now have inflammation, which is a risk factor for Alzheimer's, and now you also develop insulin resistance.
For more information on the program to prevent or reverse Alzheimer's symptoms, tune into Healthy Living with Lori Johnson. It's tonight at 9:30 Eastern on the CBN News Channel. Coming up, Chicago suffering from an epidemic of gun violence. But Christian leaders say the answer will come through prayer. We're going to hear from an evangelical group that has started a revival near the city and is raising up people to be a light in the darkness. That story when we come back. Stay with us.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5 Wednesday night at 9:30.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
Prophecy thousands of years old,
We were called to be a light to the world.
being fulfilled today. Discover how. Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life. Just call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religious he has, which color he is. This is what I'm doing.
See how the people of Israel are fulfilling prophecy
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
by sharing their knowledge
In Africa, in Asia, in South America, in East Europe.
and their love.
This is how we work. This is us.
Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com.
Gun violence in Chicago continues to spiral out of control. This weekend, 9 people were killed, including a 9-year-old boy. 25 others were also wounded. And in just the last month, the city saw, get this, a 139% jump in citywide murders. It is a problem many Christian leaders say can only change through prayer. And one evangelical group has kicked off a revival near the city. The Last Reformation is a movement to train and equip people to go out and be a light in the darkness. One of the event organizers told CBN News' The Prayer Link program that it is vital now more than ever for the church to continue to spread the gospel.
Everybody needs Jesus. And it's a point that we really need to come to. And what we want to do is just teach people how to follow Jesus, not just a church denomination, but to follow Jesus. And that first part is really having people to understand that, hey, I have a Father in heaven that loves me. Doesn't matter if you're black, white, Spanish, Asian, or anything else. And people have been really receptive. People were getting healed on the street. They were coming back to the tent. They were getting baptized. They were giving their life to Jesus. It was just amazing.
Great to see and hear good news from Chicago when you hear so much negative. Well, you can hear the rest of this interview and more tonight on the Prayer Link on the CBN News Channel. It's at 6:30 Eastern. That's going to do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. Remember, you can find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel anytime or online with CBNnews.com. Also, tell us what you think about the stories you've seen by emailing newswatch@cbn.com, or you can talk to us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hope you'll join us next time. Have a great day.